Now we're gonna be discussing the trade cycle. The trade cycle consists of 4 phases: purchases, the price management, the sales, and the financial results. And after each phase, we're gonna be checking various reports. So we'll begin with the setting up. So the setting up will include the demonstration of our reviewed and refactored batch functionality. So let's switch to 1C drive. So in the latest release, we've reviewed batches functionality and added some features to it which might interest companies that work with products that have expiration dates. So now settings related to batches are set in product categories. So let's create a new product and a new product category. Let's go to products. So now let's create a new product and a new category for it. So let's now create a new product category. So now in the product category, we specify whether or not this product category is going to have variants or batches. So let's check batches. Once we've checked batches, batch settings appear. So what is batch settings? Batch settings define which information is going to be entered upon creating a batch. So now let's create batch settings for our new product category. So let's give these settings a name, for example, main settings for paints. And we're going to select batch number and expiration date. So once again, these two checkboxes mean that whenever we want to create a batch for paints, we will be obligated to input the batch number and the expiration date. The precision of the expiration date may be up to hours, but we won't be looking into that. We'll leave it as days. So now what's next? Now let's set a default tracking policy. And for products with expiration dates, it's convenient to use FIFO policy, as in this case, whenever we sell a product of this category, the system will pick up the batch that has the closest expiration date. FIFO means first expired, first out. So now let's create a default tracking policy. So now we have to tell the system how to handle the batch depending on the warehouse. There are cases when a product is accounted in batches, but at a certain point we don't need any information about the batch. For example, if we store the expired paint in a separate warehouse, we can tell the system that on this particular warehouse the product will be handled without any information about its batch. So let's add a warehouse which will be called expired paints, for example, and assign another method that is called referential to this warehouse. So this tracking method, once again, is called referential, and In this method, we can select in which tracking areas the user will be obligated to indicate batches. So we will uncheck all of the areas and we'll save it. And now we're gonna select it. So now we have to specify how the batch is gonna be handled on the rest of the warehouses. So now that we've done specifying the policies applied depending on the warehouse, you may ask, why do we need the default tracking policy if all the policies were specified? It is needed if, for example, in the future there will be more warehouses added, then those warehouses will handle this product as it's set in the default policy. So, for example, if we add another warehouse in the future, it will be automatically added to this table, and this warehouse will be assigned the FIFO method. So, once again, what are the batch settings for? The batch settings tell the system which information is needed upon creating a new batch, and it tells the system which tracking method will be applied on a certain warehouse. So now let's save the settings and proceed. So now we have to finish creating the new product. Let's switch to it. Paints with batches. So the last thing we'll need is the shelf life. And the shelf life is located on the additional data tab of the product card. And it's here. Let's put 365 days. And let's click save. So now let's close all the windows and proceed to the next step. So far we've managed to talk about batches functionality. Now let's move on to purchases, and we'll start by creating a purchase order. So let's go to purchases and open up purchase orders. Let's click create. Let's choose the supplier. And let's choose the warehouse. Let's add the product. Let's add the quantity and the price. Now let's pause the document. So filling in batches in orders is optional. The life of a batch really begins when we post the supplier invoice. So now let's click generate and create a supplier invoice. So now if we try to post the supplier invoice, the system will throw an error indicating that we should fill in the batch. So now let's create a batch for this product. So according to the batch settings, as you might remember, we have to fill in the batch number and the expiration dates. So now let's just put something like 001 and let's put an expiration date, something like this. Now let's post this supplier invoice and create another one with another batch. Now let's create a batch with a further expiration date. So now we have two batches with different expiration dates. Now let's have a look at some batch reports. Let's go to warehouse and let's choose available stock. And the available stock report has a option which is related to expiration dates. It's called available stock by expiration date. Let's choose it. Let's click generate. So here we have our two batches. Here we can see the shelf life. And also the report shows us the days till expiration and the expiration percent. Now let's close the report and have a look at how we monitor the delivery of purchase orders. So let's go to purchases section and choose the purchase order statement report. Let's choose our company and click generate. So now we see that the order that we placed is completely received. Now let's create another one. Let's copy the first one and post it. Let's close it and get back to the report, generate it again. Now we see that the second one isn't received and we see the expected quantity. So far we've discussed how to create purchase orders, how to monitor delivery, how to create batches and create supplier invoices. Now let's have a look at how do we monitor the payments to our suppliers. So let's close the report and head to cash management and let's create a bank payment. So let's select our supplier, which is Global Trade Corp, and now let's choose the unpaid invoices by clicking select. So here we have 3 invoices. So now we can select which documents are gonna be paid. Let's select this one and click OK. Now let's choose the account, the bank account that we've created earlier. So we're gonna be paying in euros. Now let's check the paid checkbox and pause the document. Now let's close the document and head to the supplier balance report. And here you can see that our bank payment got reflected at the debits column. So the total was 112 euros. We paid 56 and the closing balance is 56. Now let's move on to the next step. So we've completed all the purchases steps. Now let's move on to prices and let's see how we can create supplier price types and register supplier prices. Let's close the reports. Go to purchases and open supplier price types. Let's click create, fill in the description, fill in the counterparty and click save and close. Note that we can create various price types for a single supplier. Now that we've created a price type, we can assign it to a counterparty's contract, and it will be automatically applied in documents based on this contract. So now let's close the supplier price types and head to purchases, suppliers. And let's open the Global Trade Corp supplier. Let's go to contracts. Let's open the default contract. Let's go to billing. Now let's click more options and allow editing. And here we can now fill in the purchase price type. Let's now click Save and Close. Now let's see how to register supplier prices. Let's return to the purchase orders and create a supplier invoice for the second purchase order. And here you can see the price types that we created earlier were automatically applied here. And also we can see that the register supplier prices checkbox is checked. So once we post the supplier invoice, the supplier prices will be automatically registered. Let's choose the batch and click post. So now let's have a look at the supplier price lists. Let's close the documents, head to purchases and click supplier price lists. Here we can choose the supplier price type and see the prices registered for this price type. Now let's move on to the next step and see how we create sales prices and set sales prices. Let's close supplier price lists. So setting up sales prices is similar to purchase prices. There are sale price types, and there is a tool to set up the prices. So let's begin by creating two new types of sales prices. Let's click create. Let's choose the company, the pricing method, and save and close. And let's create a retail price for global trade. So the retail price will be based on the wholesale price. So let's choose base price plus dynamic pricing method and choose the base price type, which will be the wholesale prices. And we will apply a 10% markup. So the base price plus dynamic means that each time the base price is changed, the retail price will also be recalculated in documents or in the price lists. Now let's set the prices. Let's go to sales and price setup. So first of all, let's set the wholesale price for our new product. Let's add the product. Let's paint with batches. Let's set the new price. For example, let it be €1. And let's click set. The retail price will be calculated automatically. So now let's close the prices setup and let's tie the retail price to a customer. Let's go to sales, let's go to customers, let's choose the player Düsseldorf customer and tie the retail price to its contract. So once again, we have to go to billing tab, and here we're gonna change the wholesale price to the retail price. Let's choose the retail global trade price and save and close. Now let's check how the retail price is automatically recalculated in documents. So let's close all the windows, go to sales, products. Let's find our product. Here it is. Now let's click the sell button and let's create a sales order. Let's choose the customer. And now you can see that the system tries to apply the retail price. So let's click yes. And now you see that the 10% markup was automatically applied. We also see the retail price that we've tied to the customer's contract. And let's post the document. Let's fill in the department and post once again. We've seen how to handle prices, so now let's proceed to sales. We've already seen how to create a sales order. And let's move on to goods dispatching tool. So let's create another sales order, but this time we're gonna select another contract. For example, this one. And change the prices to wholesale. Let's change also the quantity and post the document. Now let's close these two orders and go to sales and open up the goods dispatching tool. So here you see the two orders that we've placed, but we don't see any available stock. And this is because we made the supplier invoices to another warehouse. So let's open up the sales orders and change its warehouse. Change the warehouse here as well. And now we see the available stock. So now let's have a look at the settings this tool has. So you can either create sales invoices while dispatching, or you can create goods issues. So let's choose goods issues and let's post the documents automatically. Let's save and close. Before we continue dispatching, let's get back to the sales orders, and I'll show you how the FIFO method works. So you have the fill batches by FIFO button in documents. So this button will only work for product categories that are handled by FIFO method on a particular warehouse. So let's once again go to product category and see what are the batch settings for this product category. And we see that at this warehouse, this product is handled with a FIFO tracking method. So in this case, this button will work. So let's apply it. And you see that the system picked up a batch that has a closer expiration date. So as you might remember, we have the 25th and the 22nd. Now let's post the sales order and open the next one. So here we're gonna apply the FIFO method as well and post it as well. So now we are ready for goods dispatching. So let's dispatch the first sales order. Let's click generate. Here it is. A goods issue document was created. Now we can change the settings to sales invoices and dispatch the second sales order. Let's click generate once again. And we have two documents. So now let's finish the sales process for the first sales order. Let's create a sales invoice to this goods issue. And now let's close all the documents and proceed to the next step. So our last step in sales phase will be creating a bank receipt from a customer and see how that bank receipt is reflected in the customer balance report. So let's get back to OneC. Let's go to cash management, bank receipts. Let's click create. Let's choose our customer, which is Player Düsseldorf. And let's select the invoices that are gonna be paid. So we have two invoices. Let's click OK. We're gonna be receiving euros. Let's fill in the cash flow item. And let's fill in the payment amount. And let's click post. Now let's have a look at the customer balance report. Let's choose our counterparty and click generate. And we see that the amounts that we've paid in the bank payment are reflected in the credits column of sales. So now let's move on to the next step. Close all the windows. Our last step is gonna be looking at the financial results. Let's get back to OneC and let's go to analysis section. Let's open the net sales by customers report. So let's select our company and our customer. Let's click generate. And this report shows us the net sales, the cost of goods sold, and the gross profit. So now we're gonna close this report and let's open income and expenses by sales orders. Let's click generate. So obviously this report shows us the income and expenses broken down to sales orders. But if we want this report to show us the income and expenses broken down to sales contracts, we will have to customize this report by clicking setup. Then we have to click advanced and go to structure tab. And we're gonna delete the sales orders and add the contract. So the contract lies in the sales order. And here it is. Now we have to click close and generate. And we see the income and expenses broken down to contracts. So now let's wrap up. Close the report. So now let's go through the pain points that we've covered up. The first pain point was stock balances, and we've looked on the following solutions, and we've looked to opening balance wizard for inventory. We've also seen the available stock report, the purchase order statement report, the stock summary report, the stock statement report, and we've looked to the goods dispatching tool. So the next pain point was what to do with the goods expiration dates. And we've seen that in 1C Drive we have flexible batch settings. We have for sure the registration of expiration dates in a batch. We have a FEFO tool available in business documents, and there is also a report where we can look up the expiration date. So as for ARIP management, we have such reports as customer balances, supplier balances, accounts payable, and various activity indicators. For price management, we've seen how to create sales and supplier price types. We've seen how to register supplier prices. We discussed the sales pricing tool. We've seen the price settings in contracts. We've seen how the prices automatically apply in documents, and we've seen the price lists. That's all for now from me, and thanks for your attention.